I first heard about Crooked Oak in the winter of 2018. At the time, I was freelancing for a small investigative blog that focused on unsolved disappearances in the Appalachian region. I had covered missing hiker cases, old legends about abandoned mining towns, and even interviewed former search and rescue volunteers. But none of those stories ever stuck with me like this one did. It began with an offhand comment made by Tom Bewdrey, a retired journalist I interviewed in a greasy diner outside Elkins, West Virginia. He was in his 70s, rail thin, with nicotine-stained fingers and a voice that crackled like a phonograph. Tom had spent most of his career covering rural crime stories, bootlegging raids, mine collapses, missing persons, before retiring in 2009. When I asked him what story haunted him the most, he didn't hesitate. "Crooked Oak," he said quietly. "Place ain't even on most maps anymore. But back in 2007, a woman went missing up there. Emily Holcomb. I covered that case. Stayed with me. Still does." He paused, eyes narrowing. "You ever hear silence so thick it makes your ears ring? That's Crooked Oak. You hear things there. Or maybe it's what you don't hear that gets to you." I thought he was being poetic, but Tom wasn't the poetic type. Crooked Oak is a hollow about 15 miles off the main road, southeast of the Monongahela National Forest. It was once a mining town, but the mine shut down in 1952 after a cave-in killed 9 men. Most families moved away after that. By 2007, only a few houses remained, rotting, leaning wooden structures buried in damp leaves and fog. No cell reception, one way in, one way out. A gravel road twisted up through the forest, shaded by hemlocks and gnarled white oaks. The Crooked Oak that gave the place its name still stands near the entrance, split down the middle, like something cleaved it years ago, and it never healed right. When I visited in 2019, the road was blocked by a rusted gate chained shut. A hand-painted sign warned trespassers away. I parked and walked the rest of the way in, just like Emily Holcomb had 12 years earlier. Emily Holcomb was a 26-year-old grad student from Shepherdstown. She had been working on a thesis about Appalachian folklore and oral traditions. In early October 2007, she drove to Crooked Oak to interview an elderly woman named Nora Evers, the last known resident. Emily was organized, cautious, and communicative. Her professor, friends, and her mother all reported that she checked in regularly, but after arriving in Crooked Oak, she was never heard from again. Her car was found 2 days later on the side of the gravel road, locked, no sign of struggle. Inside were her field notebooks, a camera, and a half-eaten protein bar. Her phone had no signal in that area, and no calls had been made after she left the last gas station 30 miles away. Search teams scoured the woods for 10 days. Drones, dogs, volunteers. Nothing. Not even a footprint. The only clue. A neighbor down in Harmon said they saw someone walking along the ridge above the hollow that same night, alone, no flashlight, long dark coat. That person was never identified. What brought Emily there was a letter. She had reached out to Nora Evers by mail in September 2007. Nora, 81 years old at the time, replied in shaky cursive, inviting Emily to visit and hear the stories before they die. Her return address was simply Old Thistle Lane, Crooked Oak. I found a copy of that letter in the archives of Shepherd University. It was brief, but 2 sentences stood out. There's a reason the trees lean away from the center of the hollow. The ground remembers things. According to public records, Nora Evers had no surviving family. After Emily's disappearance, authorities tried to locate her, but no one answered the door. When they broke in 3 days later, the house was empty, dusty, abandoned, dishes still in the sink, a pot of water long since boiled dry. There was no sign that Nora had ever lived there, no photos, no medications, no clothing. Just a narrow bed, a mouldy rug, and a locked cabinet in the back of the kitchen. That cabinet was empty, save for a single item, a 1951 miner's ledger. Every man who had worked in the Crooked Oak mine was listed in it, along with their home addresses. 9 names had small black crosses next to them. The 9 who died in the collapse. There was a 10th name, no cross. Someone had written in the margins, "He went deeper. Locals don't talk about Crooked Oak anymore. Most shrug it off, say the place is cursed, or joke that it's where ghosts go to die. But if you press them, especially the older ones, they get quiet." I spoke with a retired coal worker named Leroy Griggs in Parsons, about an hour away. He claimed to have worked with one of the men who survived the 1952 mine collapse. I remember Walt Clevenger, Leroy told me, said he heard tapping in the walls, like someone digging toward him, not away. Thought it was the rescue team, but when they pulled him out, they found no tools, no tracks, nothing. Just him and 9 dead men in a pocket of air. Walt left town 2 years later and never came back. But the part that chilled me, he said he kept hearing that tapping in his sleep. Said it wasn't Morse code or nothing. It was slower, rhythmic, like someone knocking on the inside of a door that didn't exist. Leroy stared out the window for a while, then added, "That hollow never let him go." Some places remember death. Others repeat it. I managed to get in touch with Emily's former roommate, Claire Watson. She'd boxed up all of Emily's research years ago, but agreed to let me look through it. One item stood out, a handheld tape recorder with 3 saved interviews. The first was with a professor of Appalachian history, nothing unusual. The second was a brief recording of a coal museum tour. The third was dated October 6, 2007, the day she disappeared. The audio begins with Emily walking. You can hear leaves crunching, bird song, the faint hiss of wind. She breathes into the mic, muttering, "Approaching Old Thistle Lane. It's colder than I expected." After 5 minutes, she stops walking. Then, in a low voice, "There's something nailed to the tree, an old photograph." A pause. "Looks like a family, woman, 2 kids, and a man in a miner's helmet. Their eyes are scratched out." Another pause, then whispering, very faint, almost too faint to hear. Emily says, "Is someone there?" More silence, then footsteps, not hers. Heavier. She whispers again, "I can hear you." The recording cuts out. No one knows how that recorder got back. It was found in her backpack, which was discovered hanging from a tree a quarter mile from her car, a place searchers had supposedly checked. The bag was dry, undisturbed, as if someone had placed it there carefully. In late 2019, I decided to return to Crooked Oak. I wanted closure. Or maybe I wanted to prove there was nothing there after all. That all the stories were just the leftovers of tragedy and time. I brought a flashlight, water, and a printed map. I told no one I was going. The air was heavy with mist. Trees leaned in as if trying to block my path. The road was still there, half swallowed by roots. I found the Evers house by late afternoon. It looked the same as in the police photos. Grey, sagging porch, chimney crumbled. Inside, the kitchen smelled like mildew and soot. The locked cabinet had been ripped open years ago. But I noticed something strange. Under the rug in the living room, the floorboards had been disturbed. newer nails, cleaner cuts. I pried it open and found a narrow set of stairs leading into blackness. There was no record of a basement on the property. I descended. The stairs led to a root cellar, but there was a tunnel carved into the far wall. Old wood beams supported it, and iron rails, remnants of the mine, ran into the dark. The air was cold, still. I followed the tunnel, counting my steps. At 37 steps in, I heard it, knocking, not loud, not frantic, slow, rhythmic, like someone was knocking gently, from beneath me. I froze. Every hair on my body lifted. Then I heard breathing, not mine. I ran. I didn't look back. I never went back to Crooked Oak. I submitted my findings to my editor, anonymously. He ran the story under a pseudonym. It received minor attention. No official investigations were reopened. But a month after it published, I received a letter. No return address. It read, "You should have kept walking. The ground remembers things. So do we." Inside the envelope was a photograph. A family of 4, woman, 2 kids, a man in a miner's helmet, their eyes scratched out. Crooked Oak is still there. If you visit on a quiet day, you might not hear anything. The wind won't blow, the birds won't sing. Your ears might ring from the silence. You might think you're alone, until you hear the knocking, and realize you were never alone at all.